Listen, before the hum of electricity, before the glow of the screen you are watching, before the very idea of a future you could choose for yourself, there was another sound. It is the sound of a world made of wood and mud and iron. The sound of a bell, not marking the hour but cleaving your life into pieces. A piece for prayer, a piece for labor, a piece for the shallow, dreamless sleep of the exhausted. We look back upon this time, the Middle Ages, as a distant chapter in a book. We see castles and knights, kings and queens. We consume a fantasy, a story polished over centuries until it gleams. But that is not the truth. The truth is darker. It is heavier. It is a story not of crowns, but of the crushing weight of existence. To understand it, we must do more than learn its facts. We must attempt to feel its reality. We must engage in an act of profound and unsettling empathy. To imagine a time when your own body was a stranger to you, a vessel of sin and sickness you could not control, when the world beyond your village was as unknown as the face of the moon, when your fate was not a path you walked, but a cage into which you were born. This is not a story about great men or heroic battles. It is a story about the texture of life itself, for the 90% of humanity who lived and died in obscurity. It is a journey into a forgotten state of being, into the mind of a medieval peasant. So quiet your modern world for a moment, dim the lights, and let us step together into the waking nightmare of the 14th century. Because to truly understand who we are, we must first confront the horrific reality of what we once were. The first thing that greets you is not light, but smell. It is a physical presence, an atmosphere so thick you could carve your name in it. It is the primal scent of damp earth, because your floor is nothing more than packed dirt, crusted with generations of spilled food, animal droppings, and human life. It is the sour, acidic tang of unwashed bodies, not just your own, but the 5 or 7 or 10 other souls, crammed into this single, windowless room, their collective breath rising in a faint, warm fog. There is the sharp ammonia sting of the livestock, who share this space with you, a goat perhaps, or a few chickens, their rustling and soft noises a constant living soundtrack to your existence. And beneath it all, the sweet, sickly odor of rot, the slow, inexorable decay of the thatched roof above you, the damp straw mattress beneath you, and perhaps the very food you will eat later today. This is not an odor you notice. It is the air you breathe. It is the first and last sensation of every day you will ever know. You are awake now, not because of a gentle stirring, but because the church bell has commanded it. Its iron toll is not a suggestion. It is a crack of God's whip across the slumbering landscape, and you are conditioned to obey it as surely as a dog obeys its master. You lie on a sack, a palliasse, stuffed with straw that has long since turned to a compressed damp matting. It rustles with more than just straw. It is a thriving ecosystem of fleas, lice, and other things that bite in the night. The concept of being alone in your bed is a fantasy you could not even conceive. You have spent the night pressed against the warmth of your family, a brother, a mother, a cousin, because their body heat is one of the only defenses against the bone-deep cold that seeps through the wattle and daub walls of your hut. There are no pillows, only a log or a bundled-up cloak. There is no privacy, no personal space, no sense of an individual self emerging from sleep. You do not wake up as you. You wake up as a cell in a larger, struggling organism, your family. You try to stretch your limbs, but a chorus of cracks and groans protests from your joints. You are 25 years old, but your body feels ancient. The years of back-breaking labor, poor nutrition, and sleeping on a damp floor have already begun to reclaim you. Your spine is a question mark, your knees a collection of grinding stones. In this world, youth is not a season of life. It is a fleeting moment, a brief window before the body begins its long, slow surrender to the earth. Getting up is a conscious act of will. Your bare feet touch the floor, and you do not know if they will land in the cold damp of yesterday. Is rain seeping up from the ground, or the fresh, warm waste of a chicken? There is no distinction. The floor is simply the floor. Your home is a single room. It is a kitchen, a bedroom, a nursery, a stable, and a sick room all at once. There are no windows, only small openings covered by wooden shutters or cloth, which let in the cold and the damp as much as they keep out the light. The only source of heat and light is the central hearth, a fire pit in the middle of the floor. There is no chimney. The smoke simply rises, blackening the thatched roof and filling the air with a perpetual, stinging haze that irritates your lungs and makes your eyes water. This smoke is a constant companion, a ghost that haunts your every waking moment inside this hovel. It coats every surface with a greasy layer of soot, clings to your single woolen tunic, and works its way deep into your lungs. A hacking cough is not a symptom of illness. It is the sound of breathing and the noise. The modern world imagines the past as quiet, but your world is a cacophony. The baby is crying, its wails sharp and incessant. Your mother is already muttering prayers by the fire. Your father is coughing, a deep rattling sound from his chest. The goat bleats, demanding to be let out. From outside, the sounds of the village begin to bleed through the thin walls. The lowing of oxen, the squeal of a neighbor's pig, the distant, rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer already striking iron. There is no silence here. Silence is a luxury reserved for the dead. Your life is lived in a state of constant, oppressive sensory overload. Every sight, every sound, every smell, every sensation is a reminder of the grim, unyielding reality of your world. There is no escape, no door to close, no quiet corner to retreat to. Your mind, like your body, has no privacy. It is perpetually besieged by the raw, unfiltered, and brutal stimuli of 14th century existence. This is not merely a difficult morning. This is the very texture of your life, a prison built not of stone and iron, but of filth, noise, and the shared breath of a world that has never once offered you the simple dignity of being alone. Nature calls, not as a polite request, but as an urgent, cramping demand. You stumble out of the smoky hovel into the grey morning light, and the concept of a bathroom becomes a ludicrous fantasy. Your toilet is a designated spot in the small yard behind your dwelling, or if you live in a more crowded town, it is a bucket. The bucket is already full. The smell is biblical, a potent monument to human frailty. You add to it, holding your breath, using a handful of straw or leaves to wipe yourself clean. Then you carry the bucket to the edge of your property and empty it into the street, perhaps shouting a cursory warning of "Gardez-l'eau." Watch out for the water, though the cry is more of a ritual than a genuine caution. The streets are not streets. They are open sewers, rivers of mud, and muck thick with human and animal waste, discarded food, and the runoff from tanneries and butcher stalls. You walk through this every day. It coats your bare feet or your simple leather shoes. It is the terrain of your world. Having answered nature's call, it is time for breakfast. You return to the hut where the fire now casts a weak, flickering light. There is no table, only a rough-hewn bench or the floor itself. Your mother hands you a wooden bowl, still greasy from yesterday's meal, filled with a thick, grey, bubbling substance. This is pottage. It is not a dish. It is a perpetual entity. It is the heart of your diet, a stew that has been simmering in a single pot over the fire for days, perhaps even weeks. Whatever ingredients are available are simply added to the pot. Yesterday it might have been barley, onions, and a few sad-looking turnips. Today, perhaps some peas and a cabbage leaf. It is a culinary lottery, and you rarely win. The taste is one of smokiness, of grit from the dirt floor, of the bland, earthy starch that makes up 90% of your caloric intake. It is not meant to be enjoyed. It is meant to fill the gnawing emptiness in your stomach, just enough to fuel a day of hard labor. Alongside the pottage, you are given a piece of bread. This is not the soft, airy loaf of the modern imagination. This is maslin bread, made from a coarse mixture of rye and barley. It is dense, dark, and so hard you could use it to hammer a nail. You gnaw on it, your jaw aching with the effort. Sometimes during a poor harvest, the flour is bulked up with sawdust, ground acorns, or even clay, just to make it last longer. And sometimes this rye bread carries a hidden danger. A purple-black fungus called ergot can grow on the grain, and when ingested, it unleashes a horrific condition the priests call St. Anthony's fire. It brings burning sensations in the limbs, terrifying hallucinations, convulsions, and eventually a gangrenous rot that blackens your hands and feet until they fall off. Every bite of your daily bread is a small gamble with madness and death. To wash this down, you drink ale, not out of choice, but out of necessity. The water from the local stream or well is a microbial soup, teeming with parasites and bacteria from the human and animal waste that contaminates everything. To drink it is to invite dysentery, cholera, or typhoid, a swift and agonizing death. Brewing, however, involves boiling the water, rendering it safe. So everyone, from the oldest man to the youngest child, starts their day with what is known as small beer. It is weak, with very low alcohol content, but it provides hydration and calories without the risk of disease. It is your water, your coffee, your morning ritual. This meal is governed by a philosophy you don't have a name for, but which governs your entire existence, the theory of the four humours. The learned men, the clergy and physicians, believe the body is composed of four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health is the perfect balance of these humours. Sickness is an imbalance. The food you eat directly affects this balance. Turnips are considered cold and wet, good for balancing an excess of yellow bile. Your coarse bread is dry. This isn't just nutrition. It is a form of rudimentary and deeply flawed self-medication. You are not just eating to live. You are eating to keep your internal cosmos in equilibrium. After the meal, you might flash a smile at your brother, except you don't, because your mouth is a cavern of pain and decay. The concept of oral hygiene is non-existent. You have no toothbrush, no toothpaste. You might occasionally chew on a twig to scrape away food, or rinse your mouth with wine if you are fortunate. But for the most part, your teeth are left to fend for themselves, and they are losing the battle. By your mid-20s, your gums are swollen and bleeding. Several of your teeth are likely blackened stumps, abscessed and radiating a dull throbbing pain that is a constant low-level hum in the back of your consciousness. Your breath, like everyone else's, is foul. A toothache is not an inconvenience to be fixed. It is a form of chronic torture to be endured. If the pain becomes unbearable, you will visit the barber surgeon. He is the same man who cuts hair and performs bloodletting. He will not use anesthetic. He will use a terrifying iron tool called a pelican to hook onto the tooth, and with a brutal application of force, rip it from your jaw, likely taking a piece of your bone with it. The resulting infection could easily kill you. Your body in this world is not a temple, it is a battlefield. It is under constant siege from the outside by parasites, filth, and contaminated water. It is attacked from the inside by malnutrition, chronic pain, and the very food meant to sustain it. The church teaches you that your flesh is weak, a source of sin and temptation. Your daily experience confirms this doctrine in the most brutal way imaginable. You are constantly itching from lice. Your stomach is often cramping from hunger or sickness. Your joints ache, your teeth throb. To live is to be in a state of perpetual discomfort. This is the fundamental truth of your physical existence. It is not an aberration to be cured, but the natural God-given state of mortal man. And with this truth settled deep in your bones, you pull on your single damp tunic and prepare to offer your aching body to the altar of the fields. You step out of your hovel not into a career, but into a sentence of hard labor that began the moment you were old enough to walk and will only end when your body finally breaks. You are a serf, which means you do not own the land you work. You do not own the hut you live in. You do not even, in the truest sense, own yourself. You belong to the Lord of the Manor. Your existence is a contract, sealed not with ink but with the sweat of generations. You work his land, his domain for several days a week. You plant his crops, tend his livestock, and harvest his grain before you are allowed to tend to the small strip of land he grants you for your own survival. In exchange for this servitude, you are offered protection from invading armies, from bandits, and, ironically, from the Lord himself. Your tools are extensions of your own weary body. The plough, if your village is fortunate enough to have one, is a heavy wooden beast pulled by a team of lumbering oxen, and your job is to guide it wrestling with the thick rocky soil from sunrise to sunset. The work is relentless, governed by the seasons, not by the clock. In the spring you are ploughing and sowing. In the summer you are haymaking and weeding under a sun that bakes the earth in your skin. The harvest in autumn is a frantic race against time, a period of non-stop work where everyone, men, women and children as young as 6, is in the fields, scything and binding sheaves until their hands are raw and their backs are screaming. Winter offers a slight reprieve from the fields, but is filled with other tasks: threshing grain, mending tools, chopping firewood, and enduring the gnawing hunger of the lean months. For a woman, the burden is doubled. After spending the day in the fields alongside the men, her work has only just begun. She returns to the hovel to cook the pottage, milk the goat, feed the chickens, spin wool into thread by the weak light of the fire, mend the single set of clothes the family owns, and care for the children. She is the first to rise and the last to sleep, her life a continuous, unbroken cycle of servitude to the land, to her lord, and to her family. There are no weekends, no holidays in the modern sense. There are only holy days, dozens of them, mandated by the church. But these are not for rest. They are for mandatory prayer, for reinforcing the spiritual order that justifies your physical one. This entire system is built upon a single powerful idea, the great chain of being. The priest has explained it to you. It is a divine cosmic hierarchy, an unshakable ladder that stretches from God down to the angels, the king, the nobles, the clergy, and then, far below, to you. Below you are only the animals, the plants, and the rocks. Your place on this chain is fixed. It was ordained by God before you were born. To question it, to aspire to a different life, is not just foolish, it is a sin. It is an act of rebellion against God's perfect order. This belief is not just a piece of theology, it is the psychological bedrock of your world. It explains your suffering. It gives it meaning. You do not toil because you are unlucky. You toil because it is your sacred duty, your role in the divine drama of creation. Your Lord is not your oppressor. He is your ordained superior, placed above you by God to rule just as you were placed below him to serve. This is the great invisible architecture that holds your world together. But sometimes this order is broken. A neighbor accuses you of stealing his pig. A dispute over a boundary line turns violent. And now you must face medieval justice. Justice is not a quiet, reasoned process. It is a terrifying public spectacle designed to demonstrate power. If the Lord or his steward cannot determine your guilt, they may turn to God to decide. Through a trial, by ordeal. Perhaps you will be forced to plunge your arm into a cauldron of boiling water to retrieve a stone. Your arm is then bound, and after 3 days, it is inspected. If the wound is healing cleanly, God has declared you innocent. If it is festering and infected, which it almost certainly will be, you are guilty. Another method is trial by water. You are bound and thrown into a river. Because water is considered a pure element, it will reject the wicked. If you float, you are guilty and you will be pulled out and executed. If you sink, you are innocent. You will also most likely be drowned. The logic is inescapable and insane. It is a system where the verdict is predetermined and the only variable is the method of your death. The punishments are just as public and brutal. For stealing a loaf of bread, you could have your hand cut off. For gossip, a woman might be forced to wear the scold's bridle, an iron mask with a plate that presses down on her tongue. For heresy or witchcraft, the punishment is burning at the stake, a slow, agonizing death performed in the town square for the entire community to witness. These events are not somber occasions. They are a form of civic entertainment. People bring their children. They jeer at the condemned. They watch the spectacle of state-sanctioned violence as a stark and visceral reminder of what happens when you step outside your designated place in the great chain. It is a lesson written not in books but in blood and bone. This is the world your labor supports, a world of rigid order maintained by brutal force, where your life is not your own, and your only hope for justice lies not with the Lord, but with a God who judges you through boiling water and the cold, dark depths of the river. Your world is small. The 10-mile radius around your village is the entirety of the known universe, but within that small world looms a structure of impossible scale and alien grandeur, the church, or, if you live near a city, the cathedral. To step from your dark, smoky, earthbound hovel into the soaring stone vault of a Gothic cathedral is to experience a calculated psychological shock. The space is designed to make you feel insignificant, to crush your earthly arrogance beneath the weight of God's majesty. Light, a rare commodity in your life, streams through vast stained glass windows, painting the stone floor with the vibrant, jeweled stories of saints and angels. You cannot read the Bible, but here you can see it. You see the torment of the damned in one window, the glory of Christ in another, The air is thick with the sweet, intoxicating scent of incense, a smell so different from the manure and rot of your daily life that it seems to be the very aroma of heaven. And then there is the sound. The priest, his back to you, chants the Mass in Latin. It is a language you do not understand. Its mystery is its power. It is the tongue of God, and the priest is his sole interpreter. High above, a choir sings, their voices echoing in the vaulted ceilings, a sound so pure and ethereal it seems to be coming from the heavens themselves. This entire sensory experience, the light, the scent, the sound, the scale, is a masterwork of psychological engineering. It is designed to inspire awe, fear, and absolute obedience. It is a constant physical reminder that your miserable life on earth is but a fleeting prelude to an eternity that will be decided within these walls. This eternity is not a vague concept. It is a transactional reality. Your soul is a currency, and the church is the only bank. You pay a tithe, a tenth of everything you produce, every 10th sheaf of wheat, every 10th egg, every 10th lamb, to the church. It is not a donation, it is a mandatory tax for your salvation. But that is only the beginning. You are taught that your life is a long accumulation of sin, and each sin is a debt that must be paid. You pay it through prayer, through penance, and through pilgrimage. The most pious or the most desperate might undertake a grueling journey, walking hundreds of miles on foot, to a shrine that holds a holy relic, a splinter from the true cross, the finger bone of a saint, a vial said to contain the Virgin Mary's milk. These objects are believed to hold a divine power, a direct line to God that can heal sickness, forgive sin, or reduce your time in purgatory, a terrifying waiting room for heaven where your soul is brutally purified by fire. But the God of the cathedral is not the only power you believe in. Your mind is a tapestry woven with two threads, the rigid doctrine of the church and a much older, darker, and more intimate world of folklore. This is the faith of the hearth and the field. You may pray to the Virgin Mary for a healthy child, but you will also tie a red thread around your baby's wrist to ward off the evil eye. You attend Mass on Sunday, but on your way home you will leave a small offering of milk or bread at the edge of the forest for the Aos, the fairies, or good folk, not out of love, but out of fear. Because you know the woods are not empty. They are an enchanted liminal space, a place where the rules of the human world do not apply, a place where a beautiful woman might lure you to your death, or where your own child could be stolen from its crib and replaced with a sickly, wizened changeling. You believe in ghosts, in demons that can possess you, in witches who can sour your milk, kill your livestock, or raise a storm with a muttered curse. Your world is alive with unseen forces, and you navigate it with a complex set of rituals and superstitions. You carry a lucky charm, a polished stone, or a rabbit's foot. You know not to point at a rainbow. You know which herbs can cure a cough, and which can be used to cast a protective spell over your home. This is not a contradiction of your Christian faith. It is a necessary supplement to it. The priest speaks of a distant God in heaven, but the spirits of the forest and the field are right here in your world, powerful and immediate and demanding respect. Your spiritual life is a constant, delicate negotiation between the fear of hell and the fear of the dark woods, between the Latin Mass and the whispered charm, between the grand, terrifying order of the church and the chaotic, animistic magic of the world you actually inhabit. It is a life lived in the shadow of two kingdoms, one of God and one of things much, much older. The day ends as it began, with the tolling of the bell. You gather your aching body and return to the hovel, the smoke, the smells. You eat another bowl of pottage, the taste of survival, not pleasure. By the flickering light of the fire, perhaps someone tells a story, a bawdy tale, a saint's life, a chilling legend of the creatures in the woods. These are the moments that pass for joy, for connection. Then you lie down on the rustling straw, pressed against your family, and surrender to a sleep that is less a rest and more a brief cessation of pain. To look upon this life is to see a landscape of unrelenting hardship. It was a world where survival was a full-time occupation, where comfort and privacy were unimaginable luxuries. A world governed by a rigid hierarchy that was believed to be divine, where justice was a brutal performance, and where the human body was a vessel of constant pain and sickness. It was a life lived under the shadow of two profound fears, the fear of starvation in this world and the fear of damnation in the next. And yet, to dismiss it as nothing more than misery is to miss the most crucial part of the story. For within this brutal framework, humanity endured. They did not just suffer, they loved, they sang, they celebrated. The passing of the seasons, the birth of a child, a wedding, a village festival. These were moments of explosive, communal joy, made all the more precious by the darkness that surrounded them. Their faith both in the Christian God and in the older spirits of the earth was not just a tool of oppression, it was a source of profound meaning, a way of making sense of a chaotic and often cruel universe. They lived with a sense of community that we, in our atomized modern world, can barely comprehend. They were bound to each other and to the land by a web of mutual obligation and shared experience. Their world is gone. We have vanquished it with science, with medicine, with electricity, with the radical idea that a person's worth is not determined by their birth. We live in the world they could not have even dreamed of. But their story is not entirely foreign. It is a part of us. The resilience, the capacity to find light in the deepest darkness, the search for meaning in the face of suffering, these are the echoes of their existence that still reside in our bones. So the next time you feel the comfort of a soft bed, drink a glass of clean water, or simply enjoy a moment of silence and solitude, remember them. Remember the world of the bell, the mud, and the pottage. Remember the ancestors who endured the unimaginable so that we could one day forget what it was like. Theirs is the quiet history that underpins our loud present, a silent, foundational testament to the terrifying, tragic, and ultimately unbreakable strength of the human spirit.